At JourneyWoman, we strive to be a place where we all feel welcome. We are committed to creating the safest place possible with the intention of helping to unearth the true value of each person who joins this community. We wish to acknowledge that the land we are standing on today is the traditional territory of many nations. And we wish to acknowledge and thank the First Peoples of this territory and other Indigenous peoples for sharing this land in order for us to continue our work today. Some of you might be new to JourneyWoman, so I just want to mention a little bit about what's going on. We just issued our April newsletter last Thursday, and of course it's Earth Month, so a lot of the content in there is about sustainability and what we can do to be good travelers. So I encourage you to go to our website if you didn't get it and take a look around our sustainable travel articles. We had some wonderful guest writers, and we're expanding our editorial team. So everything from Antarctica to tips from Anna Polak, who was our JourneyWoman Award winner last year, and all kinds of great pieces. So we're publishing new articles every week. We now have about 8 writers who are writing for us, and they're from Africa and France and all over the world. So, so please do spend some time on the site if you can, and let me know what you think. And then we also have some virtual events coming up. Our monthly book club is next Wednesday at 8 o'clock, and this is going to be focused on New Zealand. It's a book by Charity Newman called Remember Me. I loved reading it. And I also had the opportunity to speak to Charity last weekend, who's a really lovely person. So please join us if you'd like. You don't have to have read the book. And then next Thursday, so that's the day after, we have our regular call on accessibility and travel. So we talk about ways that we can improve travel for women with mobility concerns. And the following Thursday, we have our monthly community call, which is usually the last Thursday of every month. And on this one, we're going to be sharing some packing tips and looking at what's in your bag. So, so if you can make time for those, please do join us. And I also encourage you to join our private Facebook group. And Marin's going to put all these links for you in the chat in case you don't have them. So today's session is on cybersecurity. We're going to do a brief presentation. You don't need to take any notes unless you want to, because we're going to send you all of this afterwards.
Oh, hooray.
We're going to go through a lot of products. So I know you're going to be saying, what was the name of that and where can I get that? So we've got that all organized to send to you hopefully tomorrow. And you know, we'll be continuing on. We have a second webinar on May 11th. And we're just figuring out the agenda for that, but it won't be the same as this. So each one will be slightly different. And, you know, this whole topic for me is about safety. And I was asked recently by a travel company leader if safety was still important for women to be talking about. And I said, absolutely. And as some of you know, JourneyWoman's been talking about women's safety for almost 30 years now. Next year is our 30th anniversary. So if you've been reading JourneyWoman for that long, you know that one of the reasons it started was to talk about safety for women because nobody was talking about it. And this is what Evelyn did. And she helped the industry understand that safety was important to women. So we have physical safety, we have emotional safety. We also have online safety. We've been talking about human trafficking, which is happening all around us, even here in the United States and Canada. And now I think even more so with war zones like Ukraine. So we're going to keep talking about safety. It's really important. And tonight we're also expanding the discussion into cyber safety with Paige Hanson. And I'm so thrilled to have Paige with us. I'm so lucky to have found her. I've been doing a lot of research on this topic and looking for amazing women to come talk to us. And I found Paige. She is a certified identity theft risk management specialist. And I'll let you explain what that is later, Paige. But she holds a certificate in identity leadership from the University of Texas. And she has over 15 years of experience in identity management. She knows all about identity fraud, cybersecurity. She helps kids stay safe online. And she's also designed a national identity theft training program for law enforcement in partnership with the FBI. She's also been a liaison with the National Organization for Victim Assistance, and she's trained over 3,000 victim advocates and military personnel. She speaks at events all over the place. She has been interviewed by many, many media. And I'm just thrilled that she's here tonight and that we all have a chance to learn from her expertise. So thank you, Paige, for joining us.
My pleasure. And thanks for the warm intro.
I'm just going to start with a couple quick questions. So why do you think this is important for us to be talking about cyber safety now? Why now?
I think, our identity, think about your name, social security number, date of birth. That's something doesn't change. Even if you change your name, we have those things. And the number of breaches, it's now becoming more top of mind that, oh, wait, I've got a breach notification. I probably should do something about that. But it tends to be a little overwhelming. And now with the number of connected devices and things we're forced to, create an account for this and a password for this and connect via app for this, but website for this, it just can become very overwhelming. For 16 plus years, I was at a company that just dealt with cybersecurity. It was top of mind for me that's what I did.
Yeah.
Talk to my friends about it, everything. So why now is just the best way to protect yourself is to educate yourself. And so that's why I enjoy doing these sort of presentations, because it gives you a chance to assess your own risk in the topic that we're talking about, and then decide how you would like to apply that in your everyday life or towards your what you're going to do when you travel. And then you're just that much more protected when it comes to your identity and cyber safety.
Yeah. And when we talk about scams and hackers and fraud and all of these things, what are some of the trends you see that are happening now that maybe weren't happening before, or even getting more attention now than they did in the past?
Well, I'm the basic things are still happening. And so I really love to just really drive home the basic things, but more and more now, because your whole life is on this thing right here. You lose your device, you've lost possibly, your password, your contacts, your emails, and the fact that you can then have an account takeover because of that. We're just seeing more and more kind of low-hanging fruit. And by what I mean that, the scammers are targeting you with phishing emails saying that it's a kind of like a too good or to be true message or a fear-based message. And with technology is making it more believable. I think before with phishing emails, we could say, there's some grammar issues or punctuation issues. They didn't say my name. They said, dear sir or madam. But now the tools are so advanced and with the use of AI that it's going to be harder and harder to be able to differentiate a real email from the place we do business with to an attack of some sort.
Yeah. And then there's text messaging, and even getting so bold as to call people, which, again, not new, but it feels like it's getting bolder and more aggressive.
I think so too. And especially with the use of AI, and when I say AI, we mean artificial intelligence. So, you hear ChatGPT and you hear all of these tools now for AI. Imagine getting a phone call and it's kind of sounds like somebody, but you're like, no, but what happens when they use pieces of that voice to create your loved one, whether it be your significant other or, your kids, your grandkids, whatever it may be, and it sounds exactly like them. I mean, they're just going to get harder and harder to identify. So yeah, it's good that we stay ahead of them by educating ourselves.
Yeah. And this week there's been some coverage of juice jacking, which you and I talked about a few days ago. That's not new either. But do you think the media needs to do more on this? I mean, is it undercovered, or is it just kind of, sporadic?
Well, let's get real. Identity theft, cybercrime isn't necessarily a sexy topic. People
Yes.
hear this and they say, oh gosh, what do I have to do? Oh, this sounds so overwhelming. And the thing I hear a lot when just having other individual conversations or speaking to a group of people is, oh, it's not going to happen to me, or
Exactly.
I have fraud protection on my credit card. That's fine. So that's
Carolyn,
where
a couple of us missed exactly what you said. Somebody's writing it. We couldn't hear.
Yeah, I said
Jackie?
juice jacking.
Oh,
Why don't we
what
can
is
explain
that?
what that, we're going to explain that.
Okay, thank you.
Got a slide on it. Yeah, Identity Management Day was a couple days ago. So that's where I believe, the media, and that's what's good about these holidays sprinkled in throughout
Awareness
the year.
days, yeah.
Cybersecurity Awareness Month, or Password Management Day, Identity Management Day, because it's a day dedicated to educating people. But I certainly would like to see more awareness in the media.
Yeah, yeah. And I also think so. I had my email hacked when I was in Spain, and you think it's not going to happen to you. It probably is. And I don't say that to scare you. I say that to empower you, because what I have learned through this process of how did I access my credit cards? How did I access my bank? How did I, all the things we're going to talk about tonight. I have been through it. So I want you to know we don't want to scare anybody. We just want to empower you with information so that you can make good choices. And it really does come down to, I think, planning ahead before you travel and making sure that you have these basics and fundamentals in place. So that's really what tonight is about, is setting you up to feel, it might feel a little overwhelming because we're going to talk about a lot of things, but I promise you, step by step, it's not that bad. So that's what we're going to go through tonight. And what we're going to do also is just take, you can put questions in the chat as we go through and we'll answer them at the end, but we're just going to let Paige kind of run through things. She'll explain what everything is, and then we'll have some discussion at the end and answer all your questions and stay as long as you want to do that. So our goal tonight is to help you leave feeling good. So Paige, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks so much. And again, thanks for having me. I think this is going to be it was already started off as a great discussion. So I look forward to covering some more things. The way that we're going to present this is, we already did our intro there, but things that you can do before you leave, en route, during your travels, and then upon your return. As Carolyn mentioned, she said, if you plan for them, if you know what you might need to have if in the case you are a victim of identity theft, there's a lot of things you can do before you go. So this section is probably the longest of all of these, just because there's so many little things you can do to help prepare for your trip. So the first one is setting up travel notifications. I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat as well. I'm going to ask you a couple questions because I've been just within the US, but traveling, and my card has a fraud. They think it's, I was on a road trip. I was going across the US. And so all of a sudden it gets shut off. I mean, I no longer had access to my card until I sorted it out. So if that's happened to you, I'd love to hear about that. But something you can easily do now is set up travel notifications and just from your phone. So if you've downloaded your credit card company or your bank's app, there is a section in most apps that allow you to do this without calling someone. You can just set that up. And you can actually do it. I mean, the sooner the better, letting them know, but you can do it the night before. You can set your travel notifications. And we do, and I'll walk you through what that looks like on the next slide. But when you do travel, we want to use a credit card versus a debit card. With your credit card, in most, well, at least in the US, you have 60 days to report the fraudulent activity. So your debit card is directly tied to your bank account. So you could have a max out of your bank and not have access to any funds for 5 to 10 business days. And so we do recommend, because of the extra protections, a credit card. And then we also, when you are paying, we recommend using the mobile payment versus a physical card. I've got a slide a little bit later to go in more depth, but I want to kind of reiterate the whole payment thing, because that seems to be the point of compromise a lot of times when we're traveling. And then you can also, while you're in this app, set up your account threshold notifications. So I have mine set up for $100. Anything over $100, any international purchases, any online purchases, I get a text message from both of my credit cards. I've set it up that way. But you can select the features that you want to enable. So I've met with some people that say every single purchase they get a text about. Some have their threshold a little bit higher. It's really just a personal preference. But here, this is my MasterCard. I have the American Airlines MasterCard. And so I just went into my app. I went to card services. It's under the services tab at the very bottom. Card services allows you then to do a travel notice. You just click add travel notice, and then you select the departure date, return date, and now they know. And then when you go through this process, they'll ask you where. That's another prompt. But this makes it really easy to just do it online. You can log in via the web browser and do this, but this is also available if you have the app. We also encourage you to enable Find My Device. So on Apple and Android phones, it's going to look, the app is similar. It does the same thing, but it's going to look a little bit different. But this allows you to know exactly where your devices are. So in the event that you have a loss of your devices and all of your data that's on your phone, you can easily locate this. And so by having this app on, that does allow you to find it in the event that somebody did steal your device. And I do recommend if you're bringing your tablet, if you're bringing your computer, have it on all of those devices as well. There's a great way to track all your belongings, and that is to put either Bluetooth enabled AirTag, Tile, or Smart Tag. And this allows you, if it's like a digital leash almost for your personal belongings. And this is what it looks like. They range from $20 to $30 depending on what brand you get. But it's connected to an app, and it's on via Bluetooth. So you can put it, with whether it's your keys and your luggage and so on, you're able to then track it in case somebody did steal your bag or your luggage, whatever your personal belonging is that you've put it on. That's the positive side of these AirTags. I'm just going to use that as an example. You've probably seen in the news that there's what to do when you're being tracked. There's been reports that people all of a sudden have a pop-up on their phone that says there's an AirTag within your proximity, or there's a connected device within your proximity. And so that's also a way people are scamming you, is they're slipping it into your coat pocket or your luggage. And so then they're following you into wherever you are. Now, typically, your phone will alert you that something's moving with you. And to disable it, it really depends on what device it is. And so it's going to be situational. But in most cases, you're able to, like for the AirTag, for example, you're able to locate it and disable it. And your phone will walk you through the prompts when it says that there's an unknown device in your area. So there's also Bluetooth scanners that you can download. So this is an app that you might want to look into. BLE scanner is one, and then Bluetooth BLE device finder is another option. One of them is, I think the BLE device finder is $5, because there's certain features that you want to unlock. But this might be helpful if you're somewhere and you just want to see what Bluetooth might be connecting to you. Before you go, you also want to update your operating system and and also download any apps that you might need. So usually last week there was a big security flaw in the Apple operating system. And so their news organizations were covering it. This happened to be the president at Gen, a cybersecurity company that I follow on LinkedIn, put a notification that says, hey, it's very critical that you do this patch ASAP. So what I do with my apps is I have it set to automatically update. That way I'm not forced to remember every week. So if there are critical patches, then at least they update. But the reason why we want you to update this before you leave is that you're not on somebody else's Wi-Fi, you're not connected to public Wi-Fi, you're on your own Wi-Fi doing those things. So any operating system, antivirus, do all of those before you go. And then if there's any new apps that you might need. So think about any translation apps, currency converter, maps, airline, hotel apps, any of those. So you're not trying to connect to Wi-Fi somewhere, trying to download something. You're prepared all the different apps that you might need along your trip. So we've talked about securing your device itself. Now, what about the apps? So every app that you have has the option to have location services being tracked. One of those things is your camera. And believe it or not, this is the part of your phone where people kind of put their guard down. So this is an example of my photo album. We talk about convenience versus security. It is super convenient for me to go into my photo album and see these, 1,500 or so pictures, some in Arizona, mostly in Arizona, and then some in Europe. And I can click on my photo album and see the 95 pictures that I took in Europe. Super cool, convenient. However, if you put your eyes over to the following photo, the metadata that is in each of these photos gives away the exact location that you're at. So this is where when I talk about assessing your risk, for me personally, I turn off this feature when I'm at home because I don't want to be taking photos of my home at home. And then I may text or email a photo to somebody. And now all of a sudden they have my home address or where I am or where I was. So instead, I turn it off when I'm at home. I opt to turn it on when I travel. Some people are flip-flop. They don't want the metadata when they travel. That's just a personal preference, but you can either disable this or use selectively. And this is in your privacy section of within your settings. You can also, we highly recommend before you leave, adding two-factor authentication to all of your accounts. It's actually best practice. Getting a text message. I'm sure you've all gotten a text message that has a 5 or 6 digit code. You have to enter into a website in order for you to get access. But when you're traveling, sometimes you might not have access to your SMS. So we actually recommend doing like a Google Authenticator or Duo, which is an app that stores all of the different websites that you go to and will generate a code through the app versus relying on your text message. Text message is definitely better than no two-factor authentication. But when you're traveling, especially internationally, you might get held up just because if you are using like an eSIM or you've decided to get a different phone while you're traveling internationally, you wouldn't be getting the text messages. There's ways around it, but I'll get to that. If you guys have additional questions, I'll be happy to answer those later in the presentation. So this is what it is. You type your username and passwords, it texts you a code and you enter the code, now you have access. And we want to do this because usually people reuse passwords or there's a breach and a fraudster has gotten a hold of your password. And now all of a sudden they do an account takeover where they have access to your email or social media account. So that's why we want to do it. It can be a little overwhelming adding these things to your all of your online accounts. So we do recommend at least having it on your email, your social media, your bank cards, all your financial cards and healthcare accounts, and then start to add it when you go to your other accounts. So when you order something on Amazon, double check that you have it. Then you go to Target, add it, versus trying to do all of them at once. It would be quite the few days or week trying to do that. This is what it looks like. So PayPal, they just text you a code, Amex, they text you a code and you enter that into the website, then they give you access to your account. You can also do verbal passcodes. So I opt for verbal passcodes when possible, because when I call into a company, I don't want somebody just because they have my, date of birth and address to be able to then have access to my account, because those generally the authentication questions that are asked when you call into, like, let's say your financial institution. And I've opted to do a verbal passcode on like my bank and a few other accounts that offer it. And actually, LifeLock, I have the LifeLock identity theft protection in my portal. They actually allow me to do it on the portal, so I have to call in to set my verbal passcode, which I thought was really easy. So more and more companies are allowing this to do it via app or online, but it's just another layer of authentication and layer to help protect your accounts. And then we want to avoid oversharing. I know it's super exciting to tell the world, your family members, your friends, everybody, where you're going, how long you're going, what your itinerary is. But maybe it's okay to tell, your few close friends and family, but as far as sharing it online, that you're really risking identity theft, impersonation scams, burglary. And we just recommend doing it later. So when you get back, that's when we recommend posting. Speaking of your online accounts, you want to consider making your account private versus public. That way you limit the number of eyes on your account. We're recommending know and managing your friends. when's the last time you've gone through your friends list and said, I have no idea who these people are, because you met them, 15 plus years ago. And so, deleting some of the people who are no longer part of your social circle or no longer really need to have updates about where you're going and what you're doing. And then also avoid taking the surveys that give away your personal information. I know it's so tempting to, know, oh gosh, I know that during Christmas, it's like, what's your Santa Claus name, or your, and then it's like, you have to answer all these questions like your pet's name growing up and your street address growing up. And it's like, all of those are authentication questions. So we want to just avoid taking those silly surveys and pass on those. We also want to use a password manager. A password manager is great because it allows you to have unique, complex passwords for all of your different accounts. And it also helps you avoid password reuse. So I know it's really overwhelming to think of, your 100+ accounts having 100 different passwords, but it makes it so much easier when you're using a password manager. So I give you some examples. This is not an all-inclusive list, but it's some reputable password managers that you can use. I personally use Keychain because I have an Apple ecosystem. So my laptop, my phone, my tablet, all of that is Apple. So I use Keychain, which is also an option as well. It definitely works out better if you're all Apple, because then you're not, because if you have a PC, then it's hard to also use Keychain. But these are wonderful alternatives should you want to use a password manager, which is highly recommended. Next, so we covered quite a few steps to do before you go. Then we also, what we're thinking about when you're en route. And when it comes to your payment, there's good, better, and best ways to pay for things. The first one is a credit card. I do not recommend your debit card. If I personally leave mine at home if I have to. I have other ways to get cash if I need to, whether it's getting cash back on a credit card purchase or whatever it need be. But debit card, I do not recommend using, but use a credit card. The better thing to do would be to use an RFID credit card. So that's like the tap pay. So you're probably used to getting your card out of the wallet, tapping it on the point of sale device, and then now you've paid. That's an encrypted and unique transaction. So that's why we recommend using an RFID. But really the best way to pay would be mobile payment. So that's loading your cards onto your phone. You use your Face ID, your fingerprint or password to unlock your phone, to allow the device. That is not only an encrypted transaction and an encrypted way that it's saved, but it is a unique number every single time that you pay for something. You also get real-time notifications from your app that says you've had a transaction or there's something going on, which I really love. So, and it's contactless, which makes it even better. So any of those, Apple Pay, Android Pay, Google Pay, PayPal Pay, any of those, they're great. So mobile payment would be recommended. And then there's this app. So it's called Wise. I know that Carolyn, you use Wise, and this allows you to send and transfer money depending on what country that you're in, because most countries are taking mobile payment, or cash tip isn't really needed unless you have to do a quick train ride or you're going to a market or something like that. Maybe you need a little bit of cash, but this allows you to transfer different currency rates on an app. So you're not, you don't have random, 100 euro and you're trying to transfer it into something else. And there might be a threshold of how much cash you can transfer. So Carolyn, do you want to add anything on the Wise app? It can be a physical card or it's an app.
Happy to answer questions later, but let's keep going and we can talk more about Wise.
Got it. Another thing, just avoiding ATMs. There's a ton of scams around ATMs with the skimmers and the skimming devices. Making sure that you keep receipts. So if there is a fraudulent charge, then you have the actual receipt to show that that's not the amount. And then using a credit card that has travel benefits and travels insurance certainly helps if there is an incident where there is fraud. And then the topic that we talked about when we first started, which is juice jacking. So this is public charging stations this is not a new thing, but it's definitely ramping up because, more and more people are traveling. When you plug your USB into these charging stations, It's installing malware on your device, loss of your data, because, how we extract data from our phone is the charger, the USB cord. So it can be a pretty tricky situation if, one, you're charging it at these public places and the fraudsters are just stealing your information or installing malware onto your device. So what we recommend is using the AC power outlet, so that physically goes into the wall. We recommend using that in lieu of directly just using your USB. So actually, let me have my cord here. I just have it plugged in. That'd be like any of these cables. We don't recommend just plugging right into those to the stations. Instead, you want to use the physical block that goes into the wall. Or you can bring your own portable charger or external battery. That makes it so, that as far as the chain of custody goes, that's yours. And so you would be able to then use a USB into that because that's your power outlet or your external battery. And then we also recommend bringing all of your car chargers, USB cables. Don't use someone else's or one that's complimentary. Instead, bring those all yourself. We also recommend turning off those auto connect functions. So there's a setting within your phone that allows you to just automatically connect to Wi-Fi. But see, what that does is you could connect to somebody's rogue Wi-Fi that's stealing all your information whatever website you go to, passwords you set up, and so on. So we want to turn that off to just not auto join. You actually select the Wi-Fi that you want to connect to. And this applies to Bluetooth as well. So you want to turn that off in your settings. You can, and this is what I do when I'm on, because occasionally when I'm flying, I'll connect to the airplane Wi-Fi, but before I leave, I forget the Wi-Fi network. So I go into my settings, forget the network so that I don't have to, my phone isn't always trying to ping and connect to that. And then if you don't need it, turn off your Bluetooth and turn off your Wi-Fi. That's another way fraudsters are trying to get into your device, is they see that your phone is pinging for trying to find somewhere that it needs to connect to. Instead, just turn it off when you're not using it, and that will leave your device a lot more safe. So we've talked about before your trip, en route, now during your trip. Remember the online basics of online safety. So again, you're there, you're in your trip. We want to, when it comes to social media, we want to limit the sharing. And then when it comes to Wi-Fi, there's kind of a good, better, and best practice.
Somebody needs to mute.
Because eventually you're going to have to connect to Wi-Fi. I think it's unrealistic to think you'll never use Wi-Fi on your trip. So let's follow the good, better, and best practices for that. So public Wi-Fi, we just have to use with caution. You really have to treat that as if somebody's looking over your shoulder, knowing every single website you're going to, websites, passwords, all of that. So we really want to go to only websites that, like, check the weather or the news, that you're not giving away personal information. A better practice would be to use your mobile data or hotspot. So just the other day, I was meeting up with my boss, a CEO of our company, and he joins the coffee shop Wi-Fi, and he tells me the username and password. And I said, no, I'm good. I'm going to connect to my mobile hotspot, and I turned that on. Did it drain my battery? Yes, it did, but I'm okay with that because I know that the data was going through my phone's network, not just the coffee shop's network. But really the best practice would be to use a VPN. So that's a virtual private network. What it does, it actually encrypts the web traffic. So that's the data that you transmit, and it can lower your risk of leaking personal information. So VPNs are an after product. So you can buy a VPN separately from a reputable company, or sometimes, like I know with my Mac, I can just turn on the VPN option. So it really just depends on what device you're using. But where I previously worked, Norton had a VPN. That's what I used to use, is Norton VPN all the time. So there's some great companies out there that offer a per device use or a multi-device use, but it's definitely something you should use when all the time personally, but especially when you're out traveling or out and about outside your home. And then some just other remembering things, when you're traveling, is just keeping your valuables safe. It's probably a preference on whether you use the hotel safe. I think the more and more people I talk to, they are like, no, we don't use the hotel safe. We keep it on our person. That's up to you, but just know what you have and just be aware and keeping those valuables safe. You definitely don't want a bunch of showing off your money in public or your valuables in public, because that can certainly draw attention from a personal safety and a theft scenario. Yeah. Then just being cautious of scams, depending on where you're at, being wary of unsolicited phone calls, emails, texts, especially people who are saying that they're from a financial institution. More and more scams are happening daily. So just being cautious and having your guard up. Just because it comes from a text message doesn't mean it's more legit. Email, no. Phone, no. You just really have to keep your guard up. And then when you're traveling, just remember those best ways to pay. The credit card is good. Better is that tap card, but really mobile payment would be the safest. And then there's a number of things that we have to do when we return as well. So the first thing is checking your financial accounts. So any of your credit cards that you use, just double checking the receipts to actually what was charged. If you're in everywhere, you should be able to check your credit report. US specific, you can go to annualcreditreport.com. That will allow you to look at your credit report from all 3 credit bureaus at no charge. A lot of credit cards offer this as well. So you can use your credit card service if you'd like to check your credit report. But I would give it like a week or 2, but just double check to see that all the lines of credit opened up in your name are actually lines of credit that you've opened. Update any passwords that you use. So if you did log into your bank while you were traveling, social media, and so on, change those passwords of all of those accounts that you use, just in case there was a compromise. You also now's a good time to update all your software, update your apps, just in case there was some sort of vulnerability while you were away. Shred all of those documents that have your PII, especially cross-cut shredding is what we prefer. Believe it or not, people actually go through your mail and see all the single cut shred and they'll put them together. It sounds like I'm kidding. It sounds like a movie. It was a movie, actually, Argo. Do you guys remember Argo? I digress. Okay. And then storing your passport in a safe, putting all of those documents back. I know, it might you get back and you just want to go to sleep, but put all those documents back in a safe spot. Pick up your mail. If you had your mail held, pick all that up, and then just beware of scams. So when you post your pictures or if somebody knows you went somewhere, you might be open to more scams because they're trying to, they know a little bit more pieces of information about you. So just keep your guard up. And then lastly, guys, it's later. So post those pictures. Now's the time to post those pictures. Post that you went somewhere magical or not magical, whatever you're posting. But just remember to review those privacy settings. If you have a public profile, you have 100 times more eyes on you. If you're tagging yourself in the location that you were at, you even amplify the eyes on your account. So setting your account to private does give you more security and privacy. And then just be aware of the background. So if you've got, you're taking a picture of your room service that you had, but you happen to have your passport open next to you because you were doing something, just be aware of what might be in your background, leaking personal details about yourself. We covered a lot, and I'm so happy we have a good 15 minutes plus to go over some Q&A, and looking forward to your guys' questions.
Amazing. How's everybody feeling watching that? It's a lot, right? I'm just going to remove
overwhelmed.
But all good stuff. Feel free to put some questions in the chat. I have a few that we're just going to start with and ask Paige. Some people sent in some questions in advance. And also I want to clarify a couple things. There's a question in the chat about RFID cards or a sleeve for credit cards. Any thoughts on that, Paige?
Yes, the risk is very low, but there's always a risk. So RFID, if you are it's also called a proximity card. So a prox card. If you're within proximity of this card, you technically can make a charge. And so you do have something called RFID bumping. In crowded areas, fraudsters will have the equipment in their backpack and they just kind of bump into you. And now more and more cards are RFID enabled. And so that gives them, potentially a number of credit cards just by bumping into people at a concert, bus, whatever they're doing. So I do recommend doing the sleeve. I don't recommend it. Okay, this is a personal preference, really, but getting an entire wallet is usually unnecessary unless all of your cards are RFID enabled. Personally, I just wrap mine in tinfoil. I like the free, the 1 cent option, but you can get a sleeve, you can, a wallet. It's really just your preference.
That's great. Another question about, is it safe to keep your passport a photo of your passport on your phone?
I'm looking through the questions, and Donna, it gets the crown for the funniest person. My stripper name. Are those the serve? Oh, you're funny. You're funny. I'm sorry. I just had a squirrel moment right here. Passport. So I would say no. It's not something you should do, but let me give you some options. So you have the ability. Usually your phone is backed up to your cloud. If you now have a strong and unique password on your cloud, you lower the risk of somebody getting into your phone, your cloud, which then essentially gets into your photos. And additionally, you have the feature on your phone to hide certain photos. So if you do decide to have your, some private photos or some personal information photos, pictures of your driver's license, passport, and so on, use that hidden feature. And so that requires, like on my phone, my face unlocks the hidden album. So not anybody who gets access to my phone can instantly have the pictures in my hidden album. So those are, if you decide to put the picture on your phone, at least take those 2 steps.
Great. There's a question on VPNs, and I think we'll want to talk about password managers too. In terms of what brands you recommend.
Yeah. So for VPNs, I use what we say is using a reputable VPN. And what we say usually, if an app is free or a service is free, your data usually is what you're handing over. So there are free VPN options, but what I like to look for is, one, where is the company located, or where are they out of? Is it a US based company? Is it a Russia based company? That would help me decide personally. Maybe you're living on the edge and you want to use a Russian based company. That's fine. That's fine. But really, it's just a personal preference. So I used to work for Norton, so that's the brand I use, but there are a number of other ones. I would just use like PC Mag. PC Mag does a really good job of reviewing all the different ones. So I would just make your decision from that.
Yeah, and you mentioned keychain, and I just want to clarify for people. Keychain is if anyone has an iPhone, that is already on your iPhone. It comes with your iPhone, so it's just something you have to enable.
Thank you. And then so same thing if you use Google Chrome, and a lot of these browsers, they have their own version. So I know I opted out of the Google Chrome remembering my password just because I use all keychain on my Apple ecosystem. But maybe if you use Chrome, that was another way you could save your passwords.
Mm-hmm. And so with password manager, so Norton also has a password generator that will create passwords for you that are pretty much unbreakable, right, Paige? I mean, it's a pretty good system.
Well, yeah, they're very complex. And the key is that they're not using personal information about you, because that's what the fraudsters try to use. And then they're also different than any other password that you have used. And so that really is, yes, it's great that they're, these super complex passwords, but those two things of not using it anywhere else, and then it's not your first pet's name, that certainly helps protect your accounts.
And if you all have questions, just feel free to put them in the chat here. We'll keep, there's one here from Diane. What about using a data blocker to charge phones on public charging stations?
Yes, you could do that. Because I know, even like with iPhone, you click it into, if I were to put it unknown, put this into USB and plug it in, if something was trying to get my data, it says, well, do you allow XYZ USB to transfer your data? It's something along those lines. So something's trying to get into your data. So Apple has that built in. I'm not as familiar with Android and their safety features, but that gives me a little bit more peace of mind knowing that you'll get that pop-up notification should something be trying to extract data from your phone via USB.
Yeah. And
Can I just clarify my question for a little bit? I'll show you for a second. This stuff here, which way? I bought this thing, because it was recommended ages ago that you just plug it. I'll take it out. You plug it into your USB and then plug it into the USB port. Oh, that's coming. This thing here. But I don't know. I assumed it was safe. Is it safer? I have no clue.
is it a flash drive?
Yeah, no, it's a blocker.
Oh, okay.
Supposedly, you put it into your, you plug in your charge, your cord into this, and this goes into the USB port. And apparently this is a safety issue. But I've been using this while I'm traveling, but I don't know, is it safe or not? Because apparently Diane, it was a safe way to connect.
Yeah, Diane, according to Google, it is a good way to make it so fraudsters can't access, third parties can't access your phone data. So I would keep using it.
Okay. Well,
what's that
called? And the only reason it's important.
It's called a data blocker. It's a USB
data blocker. Yeah. And the only reason for me it was important because I have my pack, right? But on long flights, when you're traveling long distances, those chargers won't last very long if you use them. So I have to at some point charge it either onto the plane or when I get off in the airport.
Right.
So
I think
this was my answer.
Yeah, and I think that I think the best practice should be plugging it in with the wall USB, but this would be like the 1.2 version of best practice is then you can use your USB. At least there's that data blocker.
Right. Yeah, but the wall socket is probably better, I would think. Yeah.
Well, and it would charge your phone faster as well, your device faster.
Right, Paige, one time I noticed in an airport, all the wall plugs were way down near the bottom of the floor, and people were scrambling to sit down on the floor and try to grab the wall plugs, and getting down there and getting up. And this was a few years ago. I was a few years younger, but they're in horribly low, terrible places in the airport.
I agree. And that's why, depending on your airport, the more the airports that have done updates have the little, kind of like where you're sitting, they've got like a charging pod, but they've with the plugins, which I find to be, even Des Moines, Iowa has them. I feel like they should all have them if Des Moines, Iowa has them. But that's what's hard. And on top of that, Arlene, I don't know if you saw the video where people printed the photo of a wall charger and put it on the wall to see people do that. They get down and they try to plug it in, and really it was just a picture, and it was a horrible prank. But that's how much people need the charger, which is, why getting an external battery is a good move.
Great. Two-factor authentication. There was a question on that and how it works, I think.
Yes. So most of most of the websites that you sign up for when it comes to your email, your financial institution, anything dealing with your money, your health, are already going to have it built in. They're going to want a second verification code when you're signing in, but you have to go in most cases in the security settings and say, I want this verification every time that I log in, or if it's a unknown browser, because you can save your home browser so you're not having to do it all of the time. But I think it's great because what the fraudsters do when they get a hold of a batch of breached usernames and passwords is they'll run those usernames and passwords through all hundreds of popular websites and put your username and password in 100 of those websites, hoping that you've reused that password over and over again. So now they have access to your 5 different social media accounts, your emails, your credit cards, and they're in. They can do whatever they want. That's the best way to impersonate somebody, is to get a hold of their social media or email, which is why 2-factor authentication stops those fraudsters, because they need a secondary code. Fine, they got your username and password, but now they don't have that text message or that authenticator app giving them that secondary code to prove that it's actually you, which is why scammers have started to target people asking for that information. So you might have heard of fraudsters calling you, pretending like they're from your bank. They have your username and password. So they're pretending, they say, oh, we've got fraudulent charges. We're your bank. We want to verify a few things. Before we can talk to you, we need the 5-digit code that was just texted to you so we can verify it's actually you. So you think, okay, your guard is down because it's a fear-based message. You give them the code, but you've actually just given them the access to your online account. So that's why if anybody's ever initiated a phone call to you and they're asking for this personal, the code or personal information, you just want to shut it down and not provide that information.
I have a new rule. If I don't recognize the phone number on the caller ID phone, I don't answer the phone.
Isn't it? So you're never
Can I
answering
add
the phone,
something to
are
that
you?
for a second?
Yes.
But here's the danger with that. Here's the danger even with that. Something just happened to a friend of mine this week. She got a phone call from a number that was the exact same number that was on the back of her bank credit card. And they said it was Visa calling her. But she just, for some reason, found it suspicious and hung up. But the number that appeared on her phone is exactly the number on the back of her Visa credit card. So she started calling Visa and other verification companies to find out if this was legit, because she wanted to know, is there really fraud in her account? They said, no, in fact, it's not. The fraudsters are now accessing legit phone numbers, and they don't have a way, and that bank didn't have a way to block it yet. This is scary. This is really scary.
It is.
She almost, because she recognized the number, Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. This is a real thing. So I want to show you, this is called spoofcard.com. It's made up to be like a prank website. But what it does, this is just a example to show you. One, you can change the country code. You can type in the number to call. So I could call Carolyn right now, and I can decide the number I want it to display. So this is the scenario. So they say, the cyber safety tip is to, look in the back of your card and make sure it's the number that's calling you, or, call that number on the back of your financial card. And this is a way that what they're doing. And so they can display, in this case, the bank's number. Then they can change their voice if they want to. Then they can also do background noise. So imagine if I call you and I'm pretending like I'm from the airport, police, dogs barking, and I say, police, and I'm saying, hey, I'm in a really big, something's happened, whatever it is, and I can then increase that sense of urgency. I can also record the call. So just like this, we said, don't take notes, people, we'll send you this presentation afterwards. Same thing. The fraudsters, they don't want to write down your personal information. They're going to record the call. or you can send it straight to voicemail. This is a feature that's very successful for fraudsters, because when you look at your phone and you see you have a voicemail, you think, oh, did I miss a call? And then sometimes you don't even listen to the voicemail, you just read it because it's transcribed on your phone. So you don't catch maybe unfamiliar accent or tone or something like that. You are only reading it. So that's another tactic that they use. But this is just a credit-based system. I'm out of credits. I've done all my fraud for no, I used to use this for training. And then you can also text message as well. So that's a way that fraudsters are doing now, is they're using text message to do their fraud, claiming that they're from your bank or something like that. But thank you for sharing that, because then I can just show you, just how easy that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair to say anyone calling you from your bank, what's the protocol? You get a number and call them back? Is that the best?
Yeah. So it would not be to call a number, they say, okay, yeah, that's fine. Call me back at this number. You want to pull the card out of your wallet or log into your app and call the number there. And even if, like, Diane, you were sharing with your friend about your friend, even if it shows up that it was calling from their bank, it's not really their bank, because they're the ability to spoof. So even if you call that number back again, back your card and type it in, it's not going to go to the fraudster.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Okay.
And what about email scams, Paige? Could you talk a little bit about that? Because I find one of the things that I get so many emails saying my password has expired and you've got to reset it right away, and you've 24 hours and it looks just like Microsoft, and and so I always check where it's from, like the email that it originated from. I usually delete them, but
yes, I mean, it's either going to be a too good to be true message or a fear-based message. And the scammers are typically more successful with a fear-based message, because if you think something's wrong with your password, that you don't have then access to your money, potentially, that causes instant fear. And then you react. And that's what they want you to do, is do that react. Another very popular one would be the mail sort of scams, where it's saying it's the tracking scams. Anybody got these emails where it says, or text message saying USPS or FedEx delivery, UPS delivery, unknown. Yes. And if you click on that link, usually what it's going to do is install some sort of malware on your device, or have you type in your personal information to verify it's actually you. Really, the fraudster on the other end needs, they sent out 100,000 emails. They need 1% of the people to fall for it. And, they've made their rent plus some for the month.
So now we've totally freaked you out.
Well, and so the best practice for that is, I always say, if I'm like talking to a business, it's forward that to your IT, because they're going to want to know. If it's me personally, you have two options. You could just delete the email altogether, or if you want, you could take the extra step and forward it to the fraud department of your financial institution or Amazon, or, whatever it is, because they need to be aware of the threats. But you don't want to click on any links or download any of the attachments, provide any personal information, because that's their cash out game, is to get all of that information so they can make some money.
Yeah.
And actually, let me show my screen, because Carolyn, I would like to show people what we mean when we say click on the email. So I'm just going to pull up your email here. And do you see how Carolyn's name is right here? I'm just going to double click on that. And your email provider might be a little bit different, but I see this comes and I see Carolyn@JourneyWoman.com. Now, if it was a fraudulent email, it might be Carolyn@journey_woman with 2 N's and, just a bunch of weird letters. But but I see that it's from Carolyn, but it's not until I double click on this that I actually see that it's from, whoopsie. Then same goes for Marin. I could just double click on her and I see her name there at gmail.com. Okay, that looks legit. Usually you can tell from that. So it's just either putting your browser over your cursor over that or double clicking on it, and that will help you identify a little bit easier.
Yeah, especially if it's from UPS or Microsoft or one of those brands. Usually that email on a scammer is some jumble of numbers that makes no
Yes.
sense. So yeah, that's great. I know we had just had a couple other questions here. I want to make sure. I think one was about eSIM safety.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure how much you know about that, or if
Yeah. Well,
eSIMs.
eSIM, there's the
Yeah.
physical SIM card, which most of the phones have. And then now more and more, each of the carriers are allowing eSIM. So it makes it so your phone, if you have an eSIM, but phones were being targeted for their SIM card. And they wanted the people were stealing it because they wanted to steal your SIM card. And they would do something called SIM swapping, where they'd take your SIM card, put it in their phone, and then they'd start to receive those two-factor authentication texts and those authenticator texts on your behalf. And then they could do a whole account takeover. Well, now with eSIMs, they are much more safe because, one, as long as asterisk, you have a unique and strong password on your online account. So that is a risk you take when you go online, is that somebody could hack into your account. So we just want to make sure that it is a strong and unique password. But for the most part, it's relatively easy to do, which depending on what country you are, you can usually go into your phone settings and just pick your country, and you can go ahead and use your eSIM.
Okay. And there's also a question about WhatsApp. Is WhatsApp app safe?
Yeah. So WhatsApp, oh geez. Once WhatsApp got bought by Facebook, our data became Facebook's data. So if you're one of those people that decided to get off Facebook and said no more, well, Instagram's owned by Facebook, WhatsApp's owned by Facebook. So your data is just in one big bubble all over the world. I personally like it because it's encrypted. And I love the fact that you can put a password on it. So not only are your texts, it can be encrypted, your phone calls can be encrypted. So I personally like WhatsApp for those features.
My light just went out. Okay. Any other questions or tips to share or anything at all
Yes,
that we
Carolyn,
haven't
I
covered? Yeah.
have one. I have a former next door neighbor who just moved back to Switzerland, and she called me to say hello, and I asked her how she did it. And we're Facebook, we email each other, but we're also Facebook Messenger friends. And if you go on to Facebook Messenger for the person who is your friend on that, there is a little Zoom thing on there, and you can actually call internationally for no cost at all. Do either one of you know about the safety of that? Am I compromising myself at all by calling her, or she calling me?
No, as long as you know who's initiating. So the fact that you're friends, you see her, I think the picture comes up.
Yeah.
And so on. Just, you wouldn't want if it was an unknown person calling you.
Right.
But usually you can only make those calls if you are friends, which is another reason why you want to know and manage your friends on social media, so they can't just call you. But no, I mean, just know that whatever it's supposed to be end-to-end encrypted as well, just like WhatsApp. So I'd say use the free way to call internationally.
Me too. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a very specific thing, but I'm not going to do it because it's the U.S. Small Business Administration. So I've been fighting them for a year. They say I have an $80,000 loan that I took out during the pandemic, and I've done everything I can to possibly inform them. I don't have a small business. I never took out this loan, and they're refusing to believe me. And I don't know that I'll ever get rid of it. So that's a specific to me problem. So it's been ongoing for a year.
I'm so sorry. That has to be the biggest headache, because with identity theft victims, you're guilty. You have to prove yourself innocent. And that's not the judicial system's way that it's supposed to be. What state are you in, if you don't mind sharing?
Maryland.
Maryland. Okay. Yeah. Because California was hit really hard. And then, so you've usually, each state has a task force within their attorney general's office or their Department of Justice office. By chance, have you connected with them?
They told me to get a report from the police. I've called the Small Business Administration and told them it was fraud. I haven't connected with the task force with the state attorney general, is what you're saying. I've connected with my own state representatives, and they gave me suggestions, and we tried those, but nothing has worked.
Okay. I do suggest filing a report with the Federal Trade Commission at identitytheft.gov. It's going to walk you through. This is for anybody if you're in the States. And actually, we did a law enforcement training in Toronto, and they did say that in some areas, depending on how much space they had, they would accept this as well, just because it's an official form that walks you through all the details that might have happened. And this is a really great document when you fill this affidavit out to, one, it'll come up with a plan, but you take this to law enforcement, and this is going to be all the questions that they're going to ask you. So it'll expedite your time when talking to law enforcement as well. Okay.
Identitytheft.gov, and then report it as identity theft and get a recovery plan. Okay. We'll try this one.
No, I hope, and my emails, I'll show you my email at the end. I'm more than happy to try to help you as well. But I know this has to be just maddening, especially because it wasn't you. So
it wasn't me.
It wasn't you, and that's what all the criminals say, Arlene. So that's the problem. That's right. The problem. So okay. Well, I hope at least those first steps will put you in a successful or somewhat successful to get the ball moving direction.
And you'll put your email?
I will. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions we didn't get to that people still want to ask about? Well, Paige, that was just awesome. And Paige is going to come back again next month. We're going to do a similar session again and cover some of this, but I also think, and I haven't asked her yet if she'll talk about this, but I think the other thing that we're going to need to be aware of is AI and how artificial intelligence can be used to impersonate us, perhaps, or whatever. I'm not even sure of what can happen, but we want to keep talking about this. And you all are advocates, okay? You're ambassadors. You're the fast learners, the ones who are out in front. So you can help us teach others and share this webinar with others and invite them to the next one if they'd like to come and ask questions. But I want to thank you all for coming, and let's be safe. This is part of us looking after ourselves and looking after each other and making sure that, especially financially and physically, I mean, this covers everything, right? So thank you, Paige, so much for all of your expertise and your insight. It's fantastic.
Yes, thank you for this and setting it up and everything. It's been fantastic.